Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy here, for nerds, by nerds, hanging out with the crew.
I'm Ted.
I'm Nate.
So we had a viewer request from Test 3891. He wanted us to field the question of how do you handle large-scale combat? When
Fireballs.
When armies collide, how do you do it in your game?
Twin spell chain lightnings. That's how I do it.
Hey, just take out both armies. Then you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so right now there currently is no system for doing it. Now, you could do it almost like a skill challenge, which isn't very fun.
Right.
I prefer to just say that stuff is kind of going on in the background.
Right.
And let's face it, as the DM, you've probably already decided which side you want to win.
Right.
So you can really just make that happen.
Yeah.
Unless...
Just sell it. That's what you got to do, basically.
Unless the players have done something really phenomenal where you're like, man, I got to give it to them. Like, you know...
Yeah, if the players are fighting on what you've deemed to be the losing side, kind of look at how their actions are going to influence what's going on. If you deem they're going to be on the winning side, then just based on their actions decide how quickly they're going to win. You could have a simple like D20 modifier. Versus a D20 versus, the opposing army's modifier and see, like, what kind of losses are going to happen. So if, hey, winning team rolls a 17 and these guys roll a 2, all right, well, that round, loads of the quote-unquote bad guys just got slaughtered.
See, I would prefer to do more of a narrative and be like, well, okay, what are you guys doing? Who's in charge of what? And what is the plan, right? Mm-hmm. And then, as, you would do the same thing, and then you based on what you decided you kind of want, which way you wanted to go, you create a narrative from that.
That's true.
And granted, if the players come up with some phenomenal stuff, even though they're supposed to lose, I would probably give it to them anyway, and just have to ad-lib it. During the actual conflict, I would rather personally focus on small skirmishes that are happening within the battle.
So they can still be a part of the combat and it not be, well, these 40 goblins are rolling.
Yeah, you kind of like, it becomes the backdrop.
Yeah.
It comes down...
The setting is a fight, a giant fight, and
right.
you're just in this spot.
It comes down to, are you playing a role-playing game or are you playing a miniature war game? I know you've played 40K. I've played Warhammer and
There's
Warhammer
this thing
40K.
Called chainmail.
And I've been there for the person who's fielding an army of orcs, and he honestly picks up the brick with like 64 dice in it. It's like, all right, these goblins are attacking. And then now you have to go through 64 attack rolls. Okay, now these goblins are attacking. He picks the entire horde back up and rolls another 64.
That game really goes like that?
Yeah.
Ugh, my God.
So
you're making me nauseous just hearing about it.
It's possible for you to have, in the early stages of the game, a series of attacks where one person's turn takes an hour and a half, and that's just no fun, in my opinion.
You could literally break it up to where you're using certain players' proficiency bonuses, and using that in place of like battalions and stuff.
Or giving modifiers.
Well, modifiers
based on the PC's decisions. Be like, oh, that's a really good idea. You can have like a +5 modifier to your side's roll for.
I would actually just do advantage. If we're talking 5th edition, I would just go, oh well, that's an awesome idea. Use your proficiency modifier, and maybe use an off stat like intelligence, or wisdom or even charisma. Really, I feel like you could almost justify any of the mental stats,
right?
And let them roll their proficiency bonus plus that stat, and if they do come up with cool, maybe they roll it with advantage, and then the other side just has a basic armor class, and or
a DC to. Like if you're doing a complex maneuver, like wheeling about, or depends on how much you want to get into the different, tactical decisions you can make as army things, or the PCs could be generals or the squad
and that's
leaders,
I think that's the kind of what he's going with too.
So I would say you definitely want to avoid trying to roll attack rolls for both sides, and you can really pare it down to either a DC or offsetting D20 rolls, one roll for each side, and if obviously you guys are leading, and that guy doesn't have a general, well then obviously you're going to have some kind of advantage. Whereas if the other side has a distinctive general that you guys are combating against, then maybe you're comparing, proficiency bonuses or whatnot. As you said, whatever cool tactics they come up with should be able to augment.
Or if you're able to, take your elite guard and march it right down the throat of the enemy and able to take out their commander, maybe that then gives you some advantage.
The PCs could be tasked with exactly that kind of thing, being the spear point against and to get to that guy.
Having the general go down, it's going to be a morale roll on the other side, as to whether they're going to keep fighting.
Right, and there's optional rules for morale in the DMG that people can check out. Bring that into play. I don't really like this kind of a game, though, to be honest with you. Because I like to focus on the PCs and what they're doing, and like the only, you either have to come up with a big convoluted subsystem for doing this, or you have to break it down into something simple, like almost like a 4th edition skill challenge,
right?
And it just feel very thematic or exciting to do it that way. So I mean, it is far more fun to just use a war going on and a large scale battle going on as the backdrop, more so than the thing that you guys are, because there's not as many opportunities for role playing, I feel, unless you're going to do like you giving orders to every one of the commanders and telling this guy which pennant to raise and which one to lower, and and that kind of stuff.
Like war simulation, which, I mean, if that's what you're interested in.
But then at that point, why not just go play Warhammer?
No, it's definitely different.
Yeah,
I would still rather play D&D war simulation than play Warhammer. Personally, I'm done spending 8 hours rolling dice and moving miniatures around. So,
but I feel like that's almost like the kind of people that want to do that kind of a game. Otherwise, you're going to be fine with an abstract, and that's what I would go for. I would go for the abstract based on what's going on with the PC. In the game, as opposed to maneuvering the large armies, giving orders.
So that's your perspective for the D&D 5th edition, or D&D in general, is that kind of mentality? Is the don't simulate the whole battle by rolling d20.
Nah, I mean, especially as the DM, you don't even have to do that. You can just go, well, are the PCs supposed to win this, or are they not supposed to win this? What are they supposed to do? And just kind of, it's almost preordained.
Right.
Unless they do something amazing.
Well, I mean, unless you're coming from it like, well, it doesn't, I'll go either way as a DM. Like, be like, all right, are they going to win this fight? This is it. So maybe it's stacked against them. Like, is this a deadly encounter? Is this a deadly encounter?
Do they hold Helm's Deep or not?
Yeah, exactly. That kind of
Helm's Deep has never fallen.
Maybe they do some kind of really epic stuff that while you're not rolling dice for everybody that's there, you can kind of narrate it by the dice rolling. And this is definitely a case where I would roll the dice behind the screen, absolutely, simply because I don't want the dice telling them what they think's going to happen. So it's more of like I look at the dice and then I'll just like narrate based on that.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Because, I rolled like an 18 and they rolled a 15. You guys
are going to get rolled over.
Yeah, like, sorry, guys.
But, like, you think about it, right? Like, Helm's Deep is, like, a great example because what was great about Helm's Deep? It wasn't the armies clashing. It was friggin' Legolas riding his shield down the stairs shooting his bow.
Yeah, and holding the gap.
Gimli, running along the wall, taking out orcs left and right and throwing hand axes and shit.
And dwarf tossing.
And dwarf tossing.
Don't forget dwarf tossing.
Yeah, so, I like this small view.
Yeah.
And abstract the rest.
So, that's actually a really good combat scenario for all the do, have it be a gigantic battle, and then all the players in that scenario and what they did and how they affected the battle. And then, then Gandalf stops them.
Yeah.
Then your NPC comes in and says, okay, you've killed enough orcs. Time to end this.
So I guess that's our take, which sounds like don't. But
don't. Oh no, I would totally run a combat. It just wouldn't be running the whole combat just on a large scale.
It's the backdrop. It's it really is. That's the dungeon, is the battlefield. It's not, it's not about moving armies around. That's not what D&D is designed to do. So, unless you can come up with a complicated subsystem, it's not going to do it well.
Right.
And I don't know if that's what you're asking us to do, is come up with that system, but we're not really inclined to.
All right, so test 3891. What do you think? Did we answer your question, or did you really want the subset?
I think making it a little more lively than just D20 rolls is if you just made a chart like the Wild Mage chart. Well, not without the Wild Mage power, but a Wild Mage-esque chart where you've got things like, your right flank falls, and then each side would roll.
But I don't need a chart to say that. Like, I could just have them make intelligence and wisdom checks and charisma checks.
Yeah.
And but more importantly, well, what are you doing? Like, what is your command? What is your battle strategy? Mm-hmm. Well, the other army's doing this. What is your response?
Okay.
Yeah, I think that covers it, in my opinion.
So, I don't know. That's my thoughts on it.
What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Put it in the comments below. Do you like our suggestions? Do you have any of your own? While you're doing that, feel free to click like, share, even subscribe.
Go hang out with us on Facebook.
You can also join the conversation over on Reddit.
So until next time,
Stay nerd.